Session today. No gavel, I guess. I won't do that today. And I'm glad for the sunshine and the rest. Thanks for everybody who's come to the meeting, and thanks for everybody who has reviewed this once again, the municipal land management plan and the rest. I think we've done an awful lot of work. The commission or the administration has really done a whole lot of work on this too, and I really appreciate all you've done, and especially the summary at the back of it, the last 12 so many pages. It's a great succinct information that we can reference to and see what we've done and the rest. So I think it's very helpful. So I guess without anything else, Jason, if you want to get started on that.
Yeah. So basically, what I would like to do, just as we can kind of continue to refine this document, is start with the last first, and kind of just looking at what I feel is probably one of the most important pieces of the document, which is that proposed action items area. I think it's on page 192, I believe. But as we discussed this, I think we kind of discussed a few different ways we could look at it. So we just wanted to bring kind of this proposition before you guys and see if this is what you think would be helpful in this plan going forward, where we have proposed action items. We have short-term. So we kind of have it broken up into two ways. We have short-term, which is kind of what we could probably do in like less than a year-ish. And then we have the long-term, which is more than a year. And so we just had some things that we could, just an example, if we look under work sessions, we can discuss how we identify right-of-way green space that community uses, like the Whale Tail Park and the Triangle Park. A couple of specific items that were discussed in depth were the 4th of July beach recommendation, and kind of where we actually have work through that, where we have a focus on maintaining public access, adding signage, looking at dedicated parking spaces, looking at replatting kind of the tidelands into a land piece. Spring Creek Campground recommendation, and again is focusing on maintaining public access, looking at like a land acquisition for easement and rezoning and that type of thing. So just in general, those give us an idea of some things that we specifically talked about that we can do this next year fairly easily, and then place those recommendations on the land plan, and also we could possibly be taking action items on that if that's something that's kind of approved by council, that we do replat and or acquire land, right. That type of thing. And so and then other ideas were like a specific replats. I know we do have a lot of lands that we probably do need to replat so that we can use them properly. So the Fort Raymond for the Public Works building was an example. And then obviously like the specific land use that we talked about that we could take care of in the short term would be like looking at removal of the gate at the Saltwater Safari Boardwalk to allow public access. So those are this is kind of like a real live action scenario of like, do you guys like the way that this looks? Are there other things that we actually want to specifically add to that? I'd love to hear any comments of the concepts of short-term, long-term, and just how it applies to this group of comments.
I guess my first question is, what was the decision on the Whale Tail Park and the Triangle Park? Are they just an easier fix? Is there a priority why you decide on do those, or just because they're a little bit on, they've been out there, they've been needed to be addressed, and there's not other ones that were of more significance? I just guess you want to feel how you guys picked it.
So like the Whale Tail Park and the Triangle Park, they're currently not their own parcels. And so we kind of need to decide how those things like that, how we fit that into the plan. They're actually just like right-of-ways or green spaces, but they're not actually part of a parcel per se.
Okay.
And so for us, that'd be like how do, like as like those two specifically, but how do we, in general, when we do come across green space that's not its own parcel, how do we want to identify those, put those into the plan? And Or is there a way that we want to change them being part of the plan, or, you know?
They have a name, but they don't have any real designation, so you're trying to tidy that up.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah.
I like the 4th of July and the Spring Creek Campground recommendations, because I think that's signage and the rest, that's just, I think, a safety and traffic control kind of thing there. It'd be really, really helpful. I like that.
Yeah, for those kinds of things, I think it would be good for, if we spent, we could probably spend half an hour to an hour on those, looking at, like, if ideally, how we'd like to see those replatted. Or like what land would we like to acquire from the parcel that's just north, so we could dig deeper into those and then come out with like a really kind of precise recommendation. So anyway, you guys like the way this is laid out as far as having broken up like larger categories, short-term, long-term?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's tidy.
I think it's really nice. It's also gives us something to look at too. If we have a free work session coming up or a short one, let's just pick something off this short, list versus a long.
Yeah.
Well, definitely a priority on the Fort Raymond subdivision replat for the public work building. Definitely got to get on that one.
Yeah. We're already moving on that one, so that will be an easy one to check off. And also this is helpful for us as well, to kind of queue things up for the commission and kind of action items at the same time. And if at any time too, if you guys are coming across something and you want to if we want to pin it, we can always create another category of things to discuss at some point in time on, as we're coming across different items.
Okay.
And then we can place them later on this short-term, long-term.
Expand some of
Yeah.
these.
Yep.
Carol?
For easier reference, I'd recommend formatting this, so you would have your main heading and then subheadings, and then number, just the standard formatting. Because now it's like, on page footer, or the middle of the page, it makes it harder. But if you could format it so that it was really easy to say, section 1, topic B, subsection C, that would make it really easy. And it seems like under replats that there were several other suggested replats in this, unless I'm thinking of the proposals for Spring Creek Park and Campground and 4th of July Beach Park.
Are you looking also at the long-term replats?
Oh, I didn't see that yet, okay.
Okay, yeah.
And then council mentioned that when they were discussing the public works shop at the Gillespie property, they mentioned that the access to that was really awkward. It really tapers down, and it's an awkward access to the snow dump site behind it. And they said Gillespie's were a willing party to that replat. So while it's still in their ownership, that would be a good one to put under possible replat to make that access easier for the snow dump site.
Yeah, there are 5 points under replat for the long term.
And what page is it?
The next one.
It's 193.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I agree. If we can get that section platted by the snow dump area before all they still have.
I think that would be a short term as well, because they're actively trying to sell it. We don't know how long they'll be willing landowners to.
Yeah, and that's definitely mutually beneficial. That benefits them and benefits the city as well, so.
Okay.
And then if we look at, unless there's any other comments on the short term, but just, again, this is not comprehensive, but just kind of an idea of some of the items we talked about. But for long term, looking at new name for the North Dock, discuss conservation lands. We do have it is mentioned that we, having like a conservation overlay, conservation lands, and so just identify other, anadromous streams, wetlands, tidelands can be out of the plan, and then really kind of we have to define those terms. So that's something that we know is mentioned, but there's no really context built behind it.
The conservation district overlays that's referenced in the plan quite a bit. Is there a, I know that we were to talk about it briefly, but is there other, cities or states that have that thing that we can reference to it? Because I don't even know what conservation district overlay is. So it's a clear definition, hopefully they'll find that.
Yeah, I'm not educated on that, right?
I'm not either, because it's used so much throughout there, I figured somebody might know, at least historically, but, you know, we're all fairly new in this game, so
Yeah.
it's got to be referenced somewhere, hopefully we'll find it. Maybe we'll make our own.
And just, you know, kind of some of these, looking at replats and the longer term ones, they're a little more complex. I mean, who knows, we could end up doing some of these in less than a year, but just Citizens Ball Field. There's currently like not a right-of-way on the borough property, and then also we're crossing private property to get to that, so that's an issue that we know that we are going to be digging into shortly, but and then looking at like the southern half of the Woodlawn Cemetery, that's a possibility. You know, it's, and then look at the southern half under city surplus land, so.
Oh, one quick question, if you don't mind, is when you reconsider the Citizens Ball Field to add additional acreage from the southeast corner to the city cemetery, is that expansion of the city cemetery into the ball field?
No, there's like, the way the fence wraps around,
Yeah.
so the cemetery line kind of goes like this, but then that corner wraps around that way. And so kind of the borders were like the Jesse Lee Cemetery,
Right.
kind of presses up against there. So there is room as it wraps around. There's kind of like a buffer in there, but at least we can clean, right now it's kind of no man's land, I guess. And so
Yeah,
and
it is.
I believe that there are actually, might be a couple of burials in there, but at least just get that cleaned up and designated as such if that's what we choose to do. But I don't think we can ever not use, if there's possible land that we can use for the cemetery space, I think we should take a good look at it.
Is that land, that ball field ours, or is that the borough's?
That one's ours.
That is okay.
Yeah, the one on the right is ours, the one on the left is Burroughs.
Okay.
But the road that goes in, that you're driving in, is actually not a platted right of way, and it's borough property. So that's what we want to get
Cleaned up.
cleaned up and just work with the borough to plat a right of way in there.
Okay. Carol?
I just heard a policy statement and about if there's land available to expand the cemetery, we should do it. So that policy statement should be incorporated into this document as a guiding policy.
And there is, I would say, even in my mind, there's a little bit of a hesitation about the Woodlawn Cemetery, just for down the road too. Like, I don't know what's the best use of that land that's adjacent to the cemetery. Is it to surplus it, or is it to use it for later time? So those are some deep questions we could spend some time on and talking
Yeah.
about and getting information for. So anyway, that's kind of why we put those types of replats in the long term, so we can have some deeper conversations that way. So.
Well, that's pretty good for the long term, because I think some of these might require some research and historical documents as well.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
We have ones where we replat the two parcels that make up the future Jesse Lee Home Memorial Park into one parcel. Some of that's going to wait till it's cleaned up, for sure. But that could go less than a year, but safely it's probably 2 years. And then replat the two parcels that make up the Quabi Park into one. So we do have a number of replats on city property that we need to just clean up a little bit.
Okay.
Um,
My question was, the next one was, what is the difference between the borough's standard for road widths and ours? Or are we non-standard?
Yeah, it's 10 feet. Yeah, so it's 50. So we have like some older roads that are like at 40 that we haven't need but we need to. 50 is that's what we see in Dora Way, I believe. But that 60 is kind of what the borough uses kind of as the standard.
60 now?
Yeah. Yep. And then looking at sidewalks and drainage, and especially with how much snow
Yeah.
we have to park and push off to the side of the road, 60 is kind of I would say definitely preferred. I know that Doug Schussler prefers 60 just because it becomes everything from turning radiuses for vehicles to emergency vehicles, access, snow removal, that type of thing. 60 is very much a preferred.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I just didn't know what it was. Yeah.
And then, right now already, it's kind of in the long term, but Selena has been already going and on another version, not this one, but updating some imagery, because the imagery that we used in this was the best we had at the time when this was produced, and so they've already produced new imagery. So next time you guys look at this, it'll have more updated imagery on this plan, which is updated is always helpful.
I think I just put that in the long term because, I mean, in case we have data again.
Yep.
Carol?
Since these plans go on for a long time, maybe we could not date it, and just say to the most recent, instead of 2020, don't want to lock into an older version.
The only thing I'd question on that is because then you have to make sure when the most recent version, you have to have a dated one on there, so you know, reference the most recent version was produced on this date
Yeah.
versus, because then somebody may not necessarily know which is the most recent date.
Yeah.
It'd be very good to note that.
Yeah, then we could note that as kind of like at the beginning of the plan, the table of contents or something up front that makes it so like this imagery is from this year. Okay, yeah, so do you guys, because we do want to make this more of a working document going forward, do you guys like kind of the way that those pieces are laid out right there as far as potential or proposed action items?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On page 200, it says, page 177, map 82. And on there it says, rezone and sell as commercial support properties for Nash Road bench or residential. So why would we rezone for commercial if it was going to be used for residential?
Where was,
That's
Same
on
with support.
page 200 of 203.
If people were living
And-
over there, they would need some sort of amenities. I don't want to say gas station, but grocery, some sort of stuff.
Something, yeah.
I think I remember that at some point coming across that.
Yeah.
saying We needed some sort of facilities over there.
Over there to support the residential.
So they don't always have
Yeah.
to come across.
yeah, there's
Convenience stores, different things like that possibly over there as well, because if it's all residential, then they're driving all the way back into town. If they can have smaller things, convenience stores or things like that to support them out there, it might be easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like fuel, the amount of fuel going back and forth, and if you need to get fuel there, and just, we were having conversations right now about, as we develop, to be thinking ahead and set aside lands for, like a mini public work, like a mini building, so you could put like your grader or loader in there, or like a smaller like public safety building, and you just be thinking about infrastructure, so setting aside lands for commercial uses that would support both public and private, so.
Yeah, because I see a lot of people walking down Nash Road and often wonder if any of them's been hit yet or when it's coming. Because a lot of people are just walking, or you'll see them just sitting on the side of the road. It's like there's not a lot of shoulder there. And if
Yeah.
the wrong person gets distracted, it can just be a tragedy.
Yeah, I do think that, because the city doesn't pick up until I think it's just past a fog neck.
Yeah.
Construction is when the city property picks back up, and so it's borough, but that is, I guess, we could probably add that to the community land plan, I'm thinking, but that road, I know that it needs to be upgraded at some time. The more that develops, that road does need to be, at some point in time, there's gonna be a major work to be done to maybe widen it up, give it more shoulders.
Well, they've had a lot of culverts cave in
Yep.
too over
Yep.
the years.
Yep.
Especially right near a fog neck too, where they've had to fix that time and time again. So that's, I don't know if it's just really super soggy there and the roads just don't hold up, don't know the reason, but something to look at.
Yeah, I know that one there, from the Stewart Bear Creek Flood Service area, that's from Sawmill Creek, keeps jumping and keeps coming
Yeah.
south. But yeah, I think just in general, that's something that we'll probably have to address, at least for our portion, and even maybe the borough's portion, at least have a recommendation, but just for safety reasons to upgrade.
Yeah, especially if there's a lot of housing or stuff goes across there and the bench gets built up, they'll have to do something with the roads.
Yeah, and even if we're looking at expanding SMIC back a little bit, between those two roads, there's just kind of a whole bunch of alders in there now, but putting in water, sewer, and electricity and that type of thing, but the more business, I mean, it's crazy, it's already full over there. But the more business that goes in back there, the more that we'll need that infrastructure to support that traffic and make it safe.
Yeah. Carol, sorry.
The point that Victoria made about that page 177 recommendation to sell as commercial support, I thought we had a policy statement that we wanted to lease land, not sell it. So throughout this document, there's a lot of sells without things being put on the surplus. We have nothing on the surplus list. So I agree that some things might merit selling, like promoting that Lowell Canyon property to sell and develop for residential. But there's a lot of parcels in here that need to be reevaluated. Do we really want to sell it, or should we retain its value as a lease site? So
I guess it depends upon what it is, because sometimes as certain people don't mind leasing, but if somebody wants to put something and invest in a lot of, time, effort, and capital into it, they might want to own the land too, and I think that may be a conversation that we need to figure out which is the best way to go with that.
Right, but before we promote this plan with all those cells in it, I think we need to firm up that policy and what the conditions might be to differentiate between selling and leasing. But once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, I think most of the cells in here are either residential or unique pieces of property that say we wouldn't normally.
We have five, I
Yeah.
think five that we thought would be best to sell, but,
Yeah, that commercial one is questionable, or I could see keeping the commercial section and leasing it. But for residential, definitely to sell it, and then those sections of unique properties that we talked about last time.
on the other hand, if it's residential and we say sell it, we lose the control over how it will be developed. They can just sit on it, forever. But if it was once you sell it, it's gone. But if it was possible to have the city, send out a request for proposals, how would you develop this for residential purposes before, we just let it sit for speculation?
Yeah, I think that a lot of these, when we were talking about seller them, it's kind of sell with a sound plan.
Development plan.
Yeah, I'd see that.
Not just,
And
I'm
sell-
hoping that we're not just throwing them out there. I'm assuming that we'd say, okay, this is something we do want to sell, and somebody has an idea for something they want to put in, and we agree with it, so we do want to sell it.
Can we describe timelines for purchase, and that might be a consideration, so somebody doesn't just camp on it and wait till the
Yeah.
property value either, gets increases or otherwise.
Yeah, there's some states that when you purchase property, it's like you have 2 years to build. So,
Peggy?
I lived in Hawaii for 18 years, and one of the things over there, all the time, it's leasehold land. I don't care if it's a 10-story condo building. So there are possibilities no matter what it is. And all sorts of businesses, all of them are on lease. So it's just a matter of opening your mind to keeping the assets the city has and having some control over it in the future as things change, and letting it go and never having any control.
I do know that we are talking about, so just, that it is in the city's mind as we're looking at moving the public workshop, but that property there, we are already talking with attorneys and what does a development plan look like, or development agreement, so that it's developed the way that we want them to develop it. We need this much housing on this side, this much housing on this side, how soon are you going to do it, what's your responsibilities of doing this, and that type of thing. And so we are very aware of and making sure when it is developed responsibly and timely. So, yeah, and in the meantime too, on properties that we're not sure of, we could always put rezone and sell or lease with a sound development plan, and just make it very kind of open-ended that way.
Yeah, whichever way benefits the city the best fashion. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to sell with, sound
Sound,
development, so it just doesn't look like sale.
right.
Just make fast buck and then you pay for it later,
Yeah.
literally.
Would you agree with sell or lease the sound development plan?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Sounds-
I mean,
Options.
I'm for, having the city keep most of their lands. I think the only ones we shouldn't keep are, the exceptional ones that have some particular anomalies or issues that are they're different, like the hospital, like that's a little different. Or homes, you could lease a land to put an apartment on, but you're not gonna lease it to put a house on it. Like a single-family home.
It happens all the time in the.
I know, but I don't
I know.
know if that's where I wanna go.
Yeah.
I'm okay with selling for, a single-family home to go in, but like a big complex, I could definitely see a lease on that.
When you talk about having costs that people need to absorb though, when it is leasehold, and they pay a lease every year or month or 6 months, however the lease is set up, it does make the cost of their property to be able to buy it a lot less. And it's
Look
still
at it.
income to the city.
If we was gonna make commercial leased property on the other side, would we not have to put some kind of utilities and stuff over there to make it, which is good that if we got them there, but that's something we'd have to do if we're gonna lease it.
Sewer and water and power already over there.
Yeah. Sewer, water, and power.
In areas, we need to expand that to make them, so that they can develop some of those areas more and put a little bit better infrastructure on those leases. So there's property, you can see where there's buildings, there's water, sewer, power. There's other areas too where it just has like power. And we do need to do some
Spread
water,
out.
sewer infrastructure, but that's obviously the most expensive. Like electricity, to move that around is cheap, the water, sewer is pretty expensive. But yeah, we do need to continue to do that, so that way I think you'll bring in better leases, more interest, build buildings, do more work.
Will the borough help in that respect? Because, let me see, 2.5 miles, I think it's a little over 2 miles from Fognac Inn, which is ours, but the first 3 miles of Nash Road is borough. Would they contribute or would they not,
Yeah, I think, it'll depend, we'll have to have that conversation, but I think that right now, more than ever, we're actually starting to work with the borough pretty collaboratively. Their new, kind of the borough community development director, planning director, Robert Ruffner, we're already working on that Safe Roads and Streets for All grant, which is road improvements and sidewalk improvements and that type of improvements. And so I think that could, Nash Road would be kind of a good example for safety that we could collaborate on and get a grant for and work together on.
that's a lot of infrastructure to put in for a town like this to absorb all those 5 miles or whatever it is, if there's more additional stuff that have to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, but I think that would definitely be something that we would put on like grants or legislative priorities, capital improvement project type of situation.
Carol?
I was thinking that the first 3 miles or so was state, that's a state road. Not borough, I never see the borough out there. Are you sure it's not state? They do 3rd Avenue, Airport Road, and part of Nash Road.
Yeah, it might be state maintained, yeah. Yeah.
Do they just hire Metco out to do it, so it may just be assumed that it's that as well?
Metro doesn't deal with Nash Road from,
Mile 2.5 to the prison?
yeah, they don't
Yeah.
deal with.
That's city.
They just deal with the neighborhoods on
That's-
this side.
Yeah, that's
right?
city.
Yeah, they just take care of the additions there.
Right.
Okay.
Another question?
Oh, sorry.
Back on that compost area recommendation, did we discuss that the Coast Guard would have housing there? Would that be part of this plan or just leave that out?
We don't really know where the Coast Guard's gonna put their housing quite yet. So I know that they've been here twice to kind of just look all over in different housing developments. And so I think,
They had a restriction they need to be within a certain radius of the ship.
I'm not for sure. I've heard something about that, but I don't know exactly what they're requiring.
We'll just leave it open-ended.
yeah, I don't know exactly what their requirements are, so,
Okay.
yep. That's exciting though.
So we did decide to change the sell or lease with sound development.
Yeah, I think just to keep it wide open for right now.
I like that, just one of
Yeah, I think that if you guys are, I mean,
them. Yeah,
that just leaves it pretty
Well,
broad.
it does give you a lot of options, so
Yeah.
you're good with that?
Yep. I think the sound development, with the sound development agreement, or sound development plan is kind of the key piece to that, whatever it works out. So, and just as we're down in there now, and I appreciate Selena and all the work she put on this, but because there, we know we did take that 214, it was edited once in 2021, and then we've kind of done some more editing. So she did want to create this log so that everyone can see kind of exactly what was changed. I mean, you can see some of the blue edits inside there, but also this is just to be really helpful and clear. And so, if there's any questions,
No, I think it was a great summary, because it reflects, because as you go through it, you sort of get lost in the details, but this gives you a great, concise summary of what has been being changed and what's being looked at. And if you want to go back, you can certainly look at it.
yeah, I agree.
I think I had a couple of questions, though, when I was going through this. And it was nice going through it, because then I was answering some of my own questions when I got to it, so that, went from there. Let me see, which page one? Oops, my notes here. I've got the Conservation District overlay, we're going to look at that, because on page, that's actually a little bit earlier, 191, that's actually not Selena's stuff there, I don't think, is it? No, never mind. I'll wait till after we're finished looking at Selena's stuff.
okay. So those are kind of just the general edits, and then if we get down to page 202, this is kind of some future edits for the plan, not necessarily the action items. But we will be doing like an update map atlas. Obviously, like we'll fix it, make sure the fixed table of contents are in alignment with proposed action items. And then after the council approval would be like, we would add that footnotes of like, so that way people could look and see when the last approved revision was.
Oh, good.
And then we do have a number of descriptions. Like I said, this is like a kind of a living document. And so we already kind of like have some descriptions that we can improve upon or work on. Looking at updated imagery, modified ones. There's ones that we can probably like rearrange or place on different ones. So I think the more that we get familiar with this document and the more we begin to use it, it'll probably like draw out things that we can make more sense to us as users.
Right.
And so we'll always be looking at just doing that kind of like the Spring Creek Campground, like update the dashboard to include new fence, and as things change, we'll just be tweaking those things to make them more accurate and more usable.
Because that's the thing that I was thinking, because we're supposed to update this annually, look at it annually.
Yes.
But we're going to be, it's like painting a moving train in some respects, because we're going to be working at it, doing the updates and doing everything else like this, and then we have to re-look at what we already did while we're still looking at the stuff that we're moving along. So I guess, I don't know, is there a way to separate that out a little bit so it's not, doesn't get all muddy?
Well, I think hopefully once we get this approved,
We got a start point.
yeah, we got a start point.
Yeah.
And so once we get this, and again, it's like, this is kind of it's like taking a picture at a moment in time. And this is where we're at, and then we'll just kind of, it'll all be black again. There's no like blue edits, and we'll be moving on, and we have a list of things that we can discuss and continue to improve upon.
Yeah, the ongoing projects that are currently being, in the hopper, so to speak, and the review stuff's over here, so we can separate it out a little bit. Okay.
Yep, and I would like to, have at least, at minimum one work session. I think, thinking about it in hindsight, like actually this time of year when the summer starts to kind of slow down is actually a really good time to, a lot of changes happen over the summertime, it seems, and so, but I think, looking at like picking this up in September and having that work session in September where we do have our work session on it and give you guys an update, okay, like here's what happened this last year, and kind of work through it again, refine it.
Well, I think based on the council's priorities and certain things, that will give us a direction on what we have to focus on for the new year,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. Carol?
So I'm just wondering why these edits are being pushed to next September. I'm unaware that there's a deadline to get this to council. Maybe there is. It seems like suddenly we're in a rush, get this to council and then put all this stuff until next year. So why can't some of these changes be incorporated?
Well,
now?
at some point in time, like, this takes a ton of time.
Right.
And we do have lots of other things to do.
Right. So
That's the reality of it. Yeah, I mean, well, otherwise we could be working on this till 2024 and probably find more new things. Oh, we'll just keep adding this, we'll just keep adding this. But at some point in time, we do have to say, okay, this is what we're doing, and we'll kind of pick up on the rest of this year. But like, this has been a huge effort and taking up a lot of time, and we do have a lot of other things to do. And so, yeah, so that's kind of there's no like perfect place to leave off, but we have to kind of pick a point. And at least the fact that we're saying, okay, we need to do these still. Yeah.
And I think council has to approve this before we move on, so if we can
Yeah.
at least get a start point
Yeah.
on things that we've all agreed upon, and then these things, other things we can, as we continue to progress, we can add and those additional edits or whatever needs to be done, and go forward with those, I'm guessing is what sort of the logic process is for that.
Yeah, and this is a transparent document. I mean, council will see like what our future edits are to consider. Like, this is completely, it's like, here's what we still need to work on. Here's what it is right now, and here's kind of the, it's like inspecting a plane. You always have to have it inspected when you build it and approve and stamp off, then you can move on. So.
Carol?
So with that in mind, on page 91, it talks about the Lowell Canyon picnic area and Mount Maritime Runners Trailhead. Would that be a topic to replat next year or, in the future sometime? Since it's a dotted line.
Because it's not platted, it's as a separate
Right.
parcel, yeah.
Right, as long as we're doing replats.
I don't think that would be overly controversial to add. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea just to add that to the list of replats.
Short term.
Yeah.
Seems like it's fairly straightforward.
And I noticed that the overall map for parks must be around that somewhere.
What page is that?
I think that must be on page 80. That map is not accurate. In the colored copy, this is all green. And most of it is resource management here. So that map, I think before it goes to council.
Which one is it?
On
Page 80?
Yeah.
Parks and campgrounds, it's all in green as if that was zone park. And it's-
Oh, you just don't like the color?
Well, park is green in our zone.
Yeah.
So just for planning, it's real important to know what the zones are. So I love it that green is park, but also maybe show that outline, because we do talk about this in the section, but show the correct zoning for this outline.
Would delineate each one of the parks that are out there?
Yeah, so this, some of this is green because it is park.
Is that all contained in the same parcel? Is that why it's all picking up green?
No, so when I had done this in April, it was my first time looking at this document, and I had just done a general map. I just chose whatever color.
Oh.
So I did not pick green because, I think I picked green because I was like, oh, parks, I didn't think of
Right.
like zoning, so now I'm trying to think of other general maps, but I don't think they would be, so if we did that one according to the zone, but I don't know about the other, like, public facility lands, because what do we have, like, what are the other ones, if we did different colors for them? I don't know if that would match up. So like, I guess I could do SMIC, because Harbor would be blue and SMIC would be purple, right, industrial?
Right, because what to me it points out is we have no parks on the east side of the bay. There's no parks.
Technically, we don't, yeah.
Spring Creek is industrial, Fourth of July is industrial. So we need parks on the east side of the bay. And I'd like to work with DOT to make Fognak Beach. A lot of that access is DOT, and they don't go into the spruce trees and maintain that. It's used as park, and maybe DOT would be happy to let us replat that, so it's public access as a park to our city-owned highlands, which I would like to be recognized as important as a park.
The city provides porta potties and
Yes.
dumpsters
Oh, yeah.
and,
You would think, if you didn't know it, you'd think that was a park.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd like to make it official that we care about it as a park. But there are no lands, and that's why this map is so cool, because it could say, look, we have nothing on the east side of the bay, and we have these scattered things, and then we have some that we'd like to be part, like this trailhead thing, but it's part of this resource management thing, or just make park, do it, let's do it. Let's make all this park, that'd be awesome. But the colors are really important, and they help guide us and understand what we have and what we don't have.
Yeah, I think I was just trying to divvy them up.
I picked a great color.
I did.
I'd like to paint it green.
But now it does make sense to do it according to zone, and then you guys can see what the actual zoning is of it. So,
Yeah, it's really, really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good idea.
And then if we could add a Fognak into a future plan to discuss and with that, the DOT right-of-way parcels, they don't maintain Triangle Park. The city maintains the bike path through there. They just want that part by the highway.
Right.
And that's not what we're calling a park. And then the whale tail, there must be, when they did the, I think it was 2001, the 0 to 8 highway, whatever, improvement plan, they did that for the city. And maybe there is a document that says, and we give you all these cute little benches with, the signs on them, and we give you a cute little fence that we later moved because it was not a good place along 4th Avenue. And we give you this trail park with the benches and the landscaping and stuff. So maybe they did give it to the city because we maintain it. They don't go in there and plow
No.
Welltail Park. And that agreement would stand instead of a replat. It's probably still public land.
Is it the borough you said that?
State.
The
State.
okay,
Yeah.
just so I know who to look up.
Yeah.
So the state owned those
It's
right-of-way spaces and
state
potentially,
right-of-way,
okay,
public right-of-way.
okay.
Yeah, it would be nice to clean up all those.
Right.
Are those, for those parks, or those, the Whale's Tail and the Triangle, does the state refer, or the borough or the state, whoever had it originally, maybe gave to the city, were they using those same terms? I mean, just as a search thing, or would you just use a grid, I guess? A grid coordinate of some sort to find it? I guess, just to save time trying to find where it is.
You could talk to DOT right-of-way.
Yeah.
There's just one person, she would know.
Doug has a contact.
I have a question for average citizen that just wants to know what's going on. Is there a copy of this at the library or something, so someone could go and look without printing off? It looks like a whole.
You can go to the city website and you go to legislative history, and then you can just open it up.
I can't. I don't have a normal Wi-Fi at home, so what I'm asking is, for someone that doesn't have those capabilities, is there any printed copy that's?
Yeah, we'll put a printed copy in the library and we can put one right over by the, yeah.
That
whatever
would
it's
be
called.
wonderful for those of us that don't have that access. Okay, thank you. 'Cause I don't know what those are. Here you go.
Okay, 91.
So just in general, we're kind of going back to that bottom section there of, anyway, we do what we already, it's like the more you look through this, the more you find things. And so we do have kind of some edits that we can be working on, some maps that we need to update. and kind of some, obviously like the future items to consider now that we have a new public works facility. We will have one, and that's something that we just want to put a pin in, that we need to update that when that
Yeah.
comes back around. So, yeah, any other I just kind of want to use more feedback from you guys on if you like the way that those, we're kind of putting those future items to work on, if you like the way those are placed in the document.
No, I do like that. I'd like in particular, it's like land's not included in the 2022 reformat that were in the 2014, so it shows that you're policing up the whole thing and bringing it all forward, and those things to be considered. I think that's a good way of approaching that.
Yeah, I think it looks really nice.
Let me see here.
Carol's question.
Okay, Carol?
I was wondering on page 192, why the priorities are all crossed off?
192. From the last, yeah, that was the previous one. That was the 2021 version of this. And that was the one where, you know, the city shop move, of course, that now is essentially is already pretty much done, and not physically, obviously, but the council has approved that one. You're talking about those priorities, right?
And I think what we're going to do,
Yeah.
those priorities, I think what we're going to do is we're going to set the priorities for what that city council gives planning and zoning in that section, and then basically the proposed action items then become our priorities in the short and the long term of like things that we need to address within this plan. I think that was the way that we discussed it last
Well,
time.
I think so, because they give us direction, and so their direction should largely become our priorities,
Right.
and because then otherwise we might have conflicting priorities,
Right.
and that wouldn't work.
And then as we accomplish them, could you put the date that it was accomplished? So that we have this record of accomplishments, which is always nice.
So is that the decision for the, you know, that the whole project's done, or the resolution and the rest are completed and they're moving on? Is that?
The more things you can check off. It just, because sometimes you feel like nothing's happened, you know?
Yeah.
And then you look back and say, well, in 2021, we got the basketball recorded for Staples. And have a little check, the date that was accomplished. And then as you look back, and I keep it running, a running list. And then you look back and say, look at all the things we've accomplished through our planning and our goals and our priorities and our accomplishments. It's really nice to look back.
Well, yeah, to see the progression would be good. I'm just trying to figure out how you know, you'd have to have a completely separate document of I would think, of accomplishments and priorities, and, you know, or accomplishments of the priorities that we've either come up with or the council has given to us. Because I don't know if you'd roll it up into the municipal land plan of any sort. That'd be a little bit, that'd become, you know, a huge, I mean, it's big enough. And I don't know if maybe a separate document of accomplishments, perhaps.
Yeah, by year.
Yeah.
Like an appendix, or like a,
Right.
and
appendix.
you have an appendix where basically you just have, and like a rolling one where you have, in this year we did this, and this year, so, and you could
Separate
place-
it out.
Separate it out, but that way you can always like, you would be looking at both documents at the same time,
That's
and
okay.
have it, so it does, because I do agree that you want to keep that as a separate document.
Yeah.
I like the idea of an appendix. That's nice.
And then it ties directly to it, so you can flip back and forth, yeah. Okay, let's see. All right. Going back to my notes here. Throughout, at different places in the document, and then maybe it's just me, there's references to city shop versus the public works building. And that's just, you know, editorial kind of stuff, and it's you know, if it's in the original one, you cross it out and you throw it in there, but there's a couple of places where it's actually still used, and I don't know if that's okay. I mean, if you just want to police that up. I think I saw that on, what page was that, 2021 map, I think, was actually on the map of some sort. Also, too, is the Seward Small Boat Harbor a true legal definition, or are we, or, because we were trying to get rid of small boat harbor, but is it an actual definition, it's an actual legal term
Yes.
for It is?
Yeah, so when it's in the table,
Yeah.
it says legal description, anything where it says small boat harbor, that is
You have
its
to keep
actual
that.
name.
Yeah, you
But in
can't
the-
change the legal description.
Yeah, but in any of the, not the legal description, but
The
the
narratives?
description of the other narratives,
Yeah.
we can change it there to
Okay.
just say the Seward. boat.
Yeah, whatever's the clearer, I don't really care, I just want to be consistent.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like you feel like you're gonna walk up into a harbor and see a bunch of like little dinghies
Little
sitting
boats.
in there, right? It's like that.
Let's see.
But yeah, we'll clean up that city shop, because you're right, we should keep that consistent with like, I think
What
that
page was it?
Public Works building.
That was at 20 and 21, I think I saw that.
On the page or the map?
You just said map.
I think it's in map. Yeah, I know that.
And on 194, it says city shop has been changed to work, to Public Works
Yeah, it's
facility,
just
so.
something to scroll through and take a look at it. You answered my other one, the difference between city road definition and borough. So you got that for me, okay. And page 201, you may have addressed this already. Okay, land acquisition. Are all these things for lands to be considered for acquisition, and on page, I think it's page 201, I think that's page, on that page 201 refers to page 185. They list out the lands for acquisition. Are these potentially available, and if they're not, should we list them? Or are they just sort of wish list kind of things?
I think we want to keep things we want that might not be available now, but keep in our mind that if they come up at some time, we're willing and want them.
Okay,
Does that make sense to me? I mean, they might not be available at this moment, but we like to
keep our eye on the
keep
prize.
an eye on it.
Yeah, and this could, like, that whole thing could be like you can have like a half an hour session work session on like lands, like, are these all stuff we want to consider? Are there other ones on there that we want to consider? Do we remove this one? Do we pick this one up, or that type of thing?
Yeah, I was just
So-
wondering if that was a wish list, or we were just like truly eyeballing them and gonna go after them or not.
Yeah, I think that it's probably like a wish list, and we probably do need to revise that, revisit that
Okay.
sometime in this next year, so.
Yeah, because as lands come available or not. And I don't know enough about what's on the other side of the bay, if there's stuff out there that's things that we don't have and we would need or want, or, because I know there's some, not that you want to take, there's a lot of private property over there of some sort, and, would that benefit if we bought that? But I don't know if that's always the best thing to do. We don't want to be a land baron either.
No, or at least, but at least look at acquiring the lands so that we have that public access that runs along the beach.
Right.
Like, to me, that would be a great one to look at adding to this, and that way we can, as far as that Spring Creek
Yeah, because there's some private lands
plan
that nobody's doing
goes,
anything.
where you can see if we can pick up that, it's not developable, I mean, well, I don't know, I guess anything's developable, but that's something that we could add to that list, or have a conversation, and we edit that list about that.
So people will end up walking on private land when
Which they're
enjoying that area.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we all didn't know that we were doing right then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's my questions that I had so far.
I think I had one on 94 and it was really small. I think it's just, get all the way back there. And it talks about the Third Avenue Park. Let's see, it's upgrade to a better park. Can we just change the word better and make it classier? Maybe like a upgrade park facilities, or
Upgrade
instead of just better park.
equipment.
Yeah, yeah, just
Modernized
something better,
equipment.
And I guess you could, yeah,
Yeah, just simple.
yep,
You can pick. We just
Okay.
better sound kind of.
Yeah, good idea.
I know I am. It's time to get this moved on.
Yeah.
Just-
So on the items that we were talking about selling versus, like what Carol brought up, do we know specifically the ones that we for sure want to say sell, and then the other ones are, either sell or lease with sound development plan, because they're in the hopper, they're not ready to launch yet. So if we that gives us options, so we change that verbiage to those, probably the best thing.
yeah, with the exception of kind of those 5 ones that we talked
Yeah.
about. And then outside of that, we would just kind of leave it open-ended at this point.
I mean,
If you're okay with that.
yeah. We could just change all of them, because if they buy it, it still says sell. I mean,
Right.
whatever's easier for
Right.
you guys.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay. Overall, from what I've seen, and you guys have done an amazing amount of work on this stuff.
Yeah.
I know that we've sort of, probably been a royal pain in, anyway, but I'm good with what we have thus far.
Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know if I think it's reasonably ready to, with what we just discussed, to move forward.
And thanks, we appreciate all your input, and we appreciate public input.
Yeah?
Thank you
guys-
so
Oh, hey,
much.
Carol?
I have a few more.
Okay.
I'm thinking this will not go to council before the October election.
There's a lot of paperwork.
If it's pretty, it could go on the October 11th agenda.
Okay.
That's our next regular planning and zoning meeting agenda.
Okay. Depending on when it goes before council, before it goes to council, be sure that this list of acknowledgements on page 8 is updated, because the mayor will be different,
Right.
the council will be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know that executive director has already left, the executive administration assistant
Mhm.
has left.
Yeah.
So any changes
Yep.
there need to be
Personnel.
updated.
Yep.
And then this wonderful cover, if you ever do a Google search for City of Seward, you go to Nebraska. So I like it really prominent that this is Seward, Alaska.
Alaska, yeah. Yeah, because if you look up Seward and you look up their ice skating rink, it's like, ooh, we got an ice skating rink. And then it's like, no, it's Nebraska.
Right.
With no mountains in the background.
Yeah, they got not too many mountains in Nebraska. That's a great picture, though. Okay. Anybody have anything else?
So will there be one more update to reflect the work session?
I think it's the next one, the 20th.
Yep. So yeah, we'll update this, all things we talked about, and then what we'd like to do is just bring this to you at the next regular meeting, and then you guys will see everything that we discussed here.
At the regular meeting or at another next work session?
What would you like?
What's our next, the 20th is a work session?
Yeah, we're gonna discuss kind of short-term rental
Okay.
verbiage, but really this would just be one last look before we bring it, so it's not gonna take a whole lot of time, I don't think, to.
I think it might take some time. I would prefer October 11th, just because we have the cemetery
Oh, yeah.
project.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I
Yep.
would prefer just maybe next week.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, well,
We'll be
If that's-
rigidly
if that's
flexible.
okay. Yeah, we're doing
Yeah.
and I just want to tell you guys what she's referring to, which I do think is important for you guys to hear about, is that I would say the cemetery has not been given the attention it's deserved over the years. And so one of the things that we're doing is we are doing the ground penetrating radar, but we actually are going through, and Celine and Courtney are basically GPSing every single site. And that way we can have it kind of do like an overlay, so we know exactly where that is in every plot, and then we can overlay that with the ground penetrating radar to find out where unknown plots are, to make sure that people, and we can have it all by GPS. And then we can have records attached to that. So on the GIS, the goal is someday that you'll be able to hover over and say oh, this is where this person is buried, and you'll be able to go and look up, have direct information on who that person is. And we have unknown ones, we'll be marking those, and so we're just in the process of doing kind of a really deep dive cleanup in the next month here, so it requires a lot of work.
Have you guys seen the Soldotna cemetery map at all? If you look that up, that one's a pretty good example that I'll try to mimic. It shows available, reserved, occupied, and then you click the space that shows the name of the person there, and then I was hoping to eventually attach the obituary to it.
That'd be awesome.
And that
So
would
when you do
be-
findagrave.com,
I need to look that site up because
Yeah,
Brenda's.
it's pretty cool.
Find a Grave is, my sister does Ancestry a lot, and she does that, she'll do Find a Grave, oh, they passed away here. and like literally pulls up a picture of the headstone and,
Yeah,
yeah,
something, okay, I'll look that up, but yeah.
Yeah, it's really a great thing.
And then their
Yeah.
obituary.
Will that tie into also the, you were talking about, or, cleaning up the area with the back of the cemetery and the ball field, and that there possibility maybe some graves that are actually in the outfield, that, you might want to figure out who's where?
Yeah.
That might be
Yeah.
I think that'd be a little scary.
Yeah, that's kind of we're going to be updating that cemetery master plan in
Yeah.
1996. And kind of just getting all those loose ends and tying them up and so, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Stan?
I just wanted to say, for being here for so long, and then listening, and then to know that you can do this with so much, electronics and all the things that are there. We've had people in the past that have been out there that couldn't find a grave or anything, and they would be out there with their own lawnmowers, taking and cleaning up the grave sites and doing everything there, and there have been people that have passed that did that. They were religious about taking and cleaning it up, so that sounds great, that something like that can be done.
It is huge. Yeah. You got a lot of work ahead of you.
Be a convention project.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is the 20th gonna be,
It's a work session.
Work session and yeah, we're just going to look over the kind of the short-term rental regulation. From what the feedback that you gave us, we have kind of, it lays out pretty easy on what changes that would look like within the code.
Yeah.
And so we just want to review that with you and talk over all those points.
Will you launch it to council after that?
Yeah, so what it would do is if you guys like the way it looks, or if there's changes we need to make, we can make it, but then we'll bring it back to you at a regular meeting. But like I said, it's the part I went over today, it's not super complex. It's actually, once you laid it out from the feedback that you guys gave us, I think it's not super complex, so it's not bad. But then once we have conversations about those, then we just bring it back to you at a regular meeting for approval. So.
Okay. So we'll have the land plan first, then the short-term rental, or you can try to get them both?
We'll probably do the short-term rental first because the land plan, because of, I totally forgot about that we have this equipment that's coming in, and we have the ground penetrating radar person that's coming in, and that's going to be a giant, like, all of our resources are going to have to go there for a couple weeks. So it'll be, we'll probably put off the muni land plan just a little bit.
All right. Anybody have anything else? Commissioners? Yeah, Peggy?
What has happened with the Forest Acres development at Forest Acres campground area?
Nothing right now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there's no reports back on all the improvements, possibility with flooding and water and all those kind of reports I thought that were.
I'm
I think-
aware of those. I don't
Yeah,
know.
the geotech, I think, did get finalized. So, I mean, you could do a public records request for that. So, but I know that we are going to be, because it's actually in the muni land plan, but we are going to be replatting those. So we're just breaking apart those two things and creating the bike park as park. That's the only plans that we have going forward.
So the only part that's going to be designated park is the bike park, including the basketball court?
The basketball court, I think, is already parked.
It's already, that whole strip's already
That
parked
whole
there.
strip along there is already parked.
Yeah.
And so it'll just be separating the campground and rezoning the bike park is actually part.
And then the other part is going to be zoned something different?
It'll just remain what it is.
Remain what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? No. No? Okay, well, this work session is concluded. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks for all your work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.